That was clear from the beginning. In a house ruled by polished appearances and stifling silence, I learned early on how to shrink myself. My parents, Anne and Douglas, were the kind of people who measured love in success, approval in silence, and parenting in bank statements. They were always moving, always working, always calculating, not in the sense of ambition, but in the pursuit of image. A perfect family portrait on the mantelpiece meant more than any conversation we'd ever had at dinner. Except with her, Grandma Ruth was the only person who made me feel like a child worth being loved. My father's mother, she was everything he wasn't: gentle, warm, patient, real. She smelled like lavender and old books. She laughed at my jokes, even the awful ones, and saved every crayon drawing I made like it was a masterpiece. I still remember those quiet afternoons in her sunny kitchen, baking banana bread or playing cards. She'd tuck a strand of hair behind my ear and say, "You're my little star. You don't have to shine for anyone but yourself." She used to tell me stories. Not the fairy tales from books, but real ones. Ones about her childhood during the war, about losing people she loved, about raising my father alone after her husband died young. "Money comes and goes," she'd always say, "but the way you treat people, that sticks to your name long after you're gone." I didn't realize until much later how bitter my parents were about her love for me. They treated her more like a bank than a mother. Every birthday dinner or holiday visit had an unspoken transaction beneath it. Be polite, flatter her, don't mention money directly, but always stay close. My father, ever the smooth talker, called it preserving the legacy. My mother was less subtle. She'd roll her eyes when Grandma talked about donating to charities or giving things away. "She's just trying to feel important." She'd whisper to my father, "We're her family. That money should stay in the family." But Grandma wasn't stupid. One evening, when I was 16, we sat on her porch watching the sun melt into the horizon. She handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a delicate gold locket and a letter. "I want you to have this one day," she said softly, "and the letter too. Don't read it now, but when the time comes you'll know." "Why me?" I asked. She smiled, that sad, knowing smile. "Because you see me, not what I own." I didn't understand it fully then, but I held onto the box like it was sacred. As I grew older, I noticed things changing. My parents grew colder when I spoke fondly of her. They tried to limit my visits. They made excuses: too much schoolwork, family vacations. You don't want to burden her, do you? But I still found ways to see her. She saw through them, of course. They're waiting. She once told me bluntly, waiting for me to die and leave them something to fight over. I looked at her, horrified. "Grandma," she chuckled, but there was no joy in it. "Don't look so shocked, sweetheart. Death makes people greedy, even the ones who once held you in their arms." That sentence stayed with me long after I left her house that night. By the time I turned 21, Grandma had started slowing down. Her voice was softer, her steps more careful, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She never mentioned her will, never talked about death, never tried to prepare me for what was coming. Not until one October morning, when the leaves outside her window were burning gold and red. I was visiting for the weekend, sitting beside her in her room while she sipped tea. She looked at me with those clear, gray eyes and said, "I've made a change to my will." I blinked. "Okay," she reached for my hand, her fingers cold but steady. "I left it all to you." My heart stuttered. "What, Grandma? Don't argue," she said, squeezing my hand. "This is not about money. It's about what's right. But what about Dad, Mom?" Her face darkened. "They made their choices. They see me as an obstacle, not a person. I want what I have to go to someone who will do something good with it, who won't waste it on power or pride." Tears welled in my eyes. I didn't want her money. I just wanted her. She smiled sadly. "You'll understand one day, and when you do, I hope you'll forgive them, but don't give them what they didn't earn." I hugged her tight, trying to memorize the warmth of her. 3 months later, she was gone. She passed away peacefully in her sleep, just days before Christmas. The house was quiet the morning I found her. I called the ambulance, then my parents. My mother's first question wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was, "What happens now?" The funeral was cold. Not the weather, the people. My parents stood like statues at the front, shaking hands, accepting condolences, pretending they were devastated. I watched them from the back row. the only one actually crying. After the service, the lawyer gathered us in Grandma's study to read the will. They sat expectantly, my father already smirking, and then it happened. He read the words that changed everything. To my granddaughter, I leave everything I own. My house, my savings, my assets. I trust her to carry forward my legacy, and to know the value of a life well lived. Silence. Then rage. I watched my parents' faces melt from smugness to shock, then harden into something venomous. What kind of sick joke is this? My mother hissed. My father stood, his voice shaking. This must be a mistake. She wouldn't do that, not to her own son. The lawyer simply folded the will and said, "It was notarized last year. She was of sound mind." I sat frozen, my heart in my throat. I hadn't asked for this. I hadn't even known how much it all was. But in that moment, I understood exactly what Grandma had meant. I also knew this wasn't the end of it. It was only the beginning. Grief doesn't always come in black veils and sobbing fits. Sometimes it sits quietly in the corner of your room at night, whispering memories you aren't ready to remember. That's how it was when Grandma died. Her absence didn't hit like a truck. It seeped in slowly, like water through cracks. One morning, I went to call her before class, forgetting for a split second she wasn't there anymore. The silence on the other end hit harder than her death itself. I tried to grieve in peace, but my parents wouldn't allow it. They showed up at her house 2 days after the funeral, not to pay respects, but to survey. She had good taste. My mother muttered, running her fingers across the fireplace mantel, like she was appraising an antique shop. My father wandered the kitchen, opening cabinets, inspecting the wine rack, eyeing the silverware drawer. "She never changed a damn thing since I was a kid," he said, half nostalgic, half disgusted. I just stood in the living room, arms crossed, watching them move like vultures circling a body. "I'll be taking the art," my mother announced, already pulling a painting off the wall. "No, you won't," I said sharply. She turned, eyes narrowing. "Excuse me, Grandma left everything to me, that includes the art." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then my father said coldly, "That's not how family works. That house was part of your heritage, not some personal jackpot." "It was hers," I replied, holding my ground. "She decided what to do with it." My mother scoffed. "Oh please, you think she did this all on her own? She was 84, probably didn't even understand what she was signing." I looked her dead in the eye. She was sharper than either of you, and she knew exactly what she was doing. That was the last time I let them into the house. The days that followed were filled with boxes and memories. I found photo albums under her bed, handwritten recipes tucked into cookbooks, birthday cards she'd saved from when I was little. Each one felt like a piece of her reaching out from the beyond, wrapping me in a love that still lingered even in her absence. Then I found the letter. It was inside the small wooden box she'd given me years ago, just beneath the locket. I opened it with shaking hands. Her handwriting was a little shakier, but still unmistakably hers. "My dearest love, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone. And hopefully, not too dramatically. I hope I died with dignity, with peace, and with no regrets. I want to explain why I did what I did. Your parents are not bad people, but they are lost. They've chased shadows their whole lives, money, power, respectability. But I've seen something brighter in you. You never needed wealth to be kind. You never needed applause to do good. You loved me when there was nothing to gain from it, and that is a love I trust. What I leave you is not just money. It's a foundation. Use it to build a life you are proud of. Help others, or don't. Save it, or don't. Just don't let it change who you are, and when the storm comes, and it will stand tall, you carry my name now, and everything it means. Always yours, Grandma Ruth. I cried for a long time after that. Not because of the money, or the house, or the fight I knew was coming, but because someone had believed in me that much. But I didn't have long to mourn. 2 weeks after the will was read, I got the letter in the mail, a formal challenge to the estate, filed by Anne and Douglas, my own parents. I didn't want to believe it at first. I stared at the envelope, reading the words over and over as if they'd change. But there it was in black and white. They were accusing me of undue influence, claiming that I manipulated Grandma in her final days, took advantage of her deteriorating mental state, and coerced her into changing the will. The rage didn't come immediately. First, it was disbelief, then nausea, then a slow, creeping burn that settled deep in my chest. They could have come to me. They could have talked. They could have at least pretended to care more about losing her than losing the money. Instead, they sued me. The next few weeks blurred into lawyer meetings and court documents. I hired an estate attorney, a mess. Halberd, sharp as a whip and twice as deadly when crossed. She read through the will, the medical reports, the handwritten letter. She said, "They don't have a case, but they'll make it messy. Are you ready for that?" "I don't want to fight my own parents," I whispered. She gave me a look I'll never forget. "They started this. All you're doing is standing your ground." The hardest part wasn't the lawsuit. It was the loneliness. Old family friends stopped calling. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions. I heard whispers. That I'd manipulated her, that I must have had help, that I always was her favorite, and now they understood why. Even people I trusted kept their distance. No one wanted to pick a side. No one wanted to believe that parents could do this to their own child. But they had, and they would, because now it wasn't about money. It was about pride, about control, about punishing me for something I didn't even ask for. They wanted to destroy me, not just in court, but in the eyes of everyone who might have supported me. They started digging into my college records, my job history, my past relationships, looking for anything to smear me with. And then one day, I got an email from a distant cousin I barely knew. There's something uniquely cruel about being dragged into a courtroom by your own parents. It strips away everything you thought was sacred: trust, love, even identity. Suddenly, you're not a son or daughter anymore. You're a defendant, a legal problem to be solved, a target. The lawsuit moved fast. My parents' lawyer filed for an emergency injunction, trying to freeze Grandma's accounts before the estate could be distributed. They claimed I'd manipulated her, that I isolated her, that I turned her against her own family. They knew none of it was true. But truth wasn't their weapon, reputation was. They started leaking whispers to the extended family, telling anyone who would listen that I'd changed in the last year, that I was obsessed with Grandma's money, that I'd twisted her mind while she was ill. Some believed them. Some stayed neutral, most just stayed silent. In court, the language turned cold and clinical. Petitioners allege undue influence. Respondent was present during will revisions. Testamentary capacity is in question. Mental vulnerability due to age and illness. They made Grandma sound like a confused old woman who didn't know her own mind, and they made me sound like a manipulative parasite who pounced at the perfect time. What they didn't realize was, I had more than a will. I had the letter. I had her medical records, signed by 3 separate physicians who'd each confirmed her clarity of mind within months of her death. And now, thanks to that email from my cousin, I had a witness. Court proceedings stretched for months. I had to relive everything: her final days, the phone calls, the visits, the day I found her. My mother sat across the aisle with perfectly dry eyes, dressed in black like she was still in mourning. My father stared through me like I was a stranger. They didn't speak to me once, but they spoke to the media. A small local outlet ran a headline, "Family torn apart over $1 million inheritance." It made me sick. Not because of the publicity, but because they wanted this. They wanted the attention, the spectacle. Anything to twist the narrative, but the truth had its day too. When my cousin took the stand, she was nervous, clutching her hands in her lap. But her voice never wavered. "I was there for lunch," she said. Uncle Doug was trying to pressure Grandma to make him sole executor. He said something like, "Why leave anything to people who can't handle money?" She told him she wouldn't change her will for anyone. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. And then she told me privately. She added that she was leaving everything to someone she trusted. "I didn't know it was you," she said, turning to me, but I know she meant it. I mouthed thank you, but the moment that turned everything came when my lawyer called Dr. Marcus Whitaker to the stand, Grandma's primary physician. He'd known her for nearly a decade. Was Ruth Thompson of sound mind when she revised her will? My attorney asked. "Absolutely," he said without hesitation. She was one of the clearest-minded patients I had, even at 84. In fact, she was adamant about her decision. Did she ever show signs of confusion, memory loss, paranoia? No, he said. She did complain about stress, said her son and daughter-in-law were pressuring her constantly, but she was strong. She made her decision freely. My mother's jaw tightened. My father folded his arms. It was over. And they knew it. The judge's ruling came 3 weeks later. The court finds no evidence of undue influence, coercion, or mental incompetence in the drafting of Ruth Thompson's will. The estate shall be awarded as originally designated. And just like that, it was done. I'd won, but I didn't feel like celebrating. Outside the courthouse, reporters buzzed around asking for statements. I said nothing. My parents brushed past me without a word, like I didn't even exist, not even a glance. I stood there alone, the weight of the entire battle sinking into my bones. They hadn't just lost money. They'd lost their image, their control, their power over me, and I realized something as I watched their car disappear down the street. This was never about Grandma. Not for them, she was just the gatekeeper. I was the threat. Now that she was gone, and I was standing in the doorway they thought belonged to them. That night, I returned to her house, my house, legally now. It didn't feel like a victory. I walked through the halls, touching the walls she once leaned against, breathing in the faintest trace of her lavender soap. I opened the kitchen drawer where she kept her tea bags, still full. Her favorite mug sat untouched on the counter. I sat on the porch where we'd shared that last sunset together, long before any of this began, and I cried not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd had. They could take nothing from that, but that wasn't the end, because something had changed in me, too. Their betrayal had lit a spark I couldn't put out. I wasn't just going to protect what Grandma gave me. I was going to honor it, not by hoarding her money, not by proving I deserved it, but by doing something they never expected. Something they would hate. The house was quiet now, no more lawyers, no more shouting, no more battles. Just sunlight through the curtains and the tick of the old clock Grandma used to wind by hand every Sunday evening. The silence should have felt empty, but it didn't. It felt like peace. The court ruling gave me full control of Grandma's estate. Every account, every asset, every square inch of the house. My parents didn't just lose the case, they lost the right to speak to me like I was less than them. But winning in court wasn't justice. Justice came afterward. It came in the choices I made with the life they tried to steal from me. I could have sold the house, bought a new car, traveled the world, moved far away from the neighborhood where everyone still whispered behind closed doors. But I stayed because I wanted them to see what I would become, not in revenge, but in quiet, burning proof that I would rise without turning cruel. The first thing I did was renovate the house carefully, lovingly, keeping everything Grandma would have loved. Her garden, her porch swing, her bedroom left almost untouched. I still slept there sometimes, in the room where she used to read me stories. But the rest of the house, I transformed it into something she would have been proud of. 2 months after the ruling, I launched the Ruth Foundation for Forgotten Children. It started small, just a couple of social workers, one counselor, and a network of foster kids and young adults who'd grown up in neglectful, emotionally abusive homes. People like me, people who'd been ignored, shamed, or made to feel invisible by their own families. We offered emergency housing, tutoring, therapy, even mentorship programs. The media picked it up. A new headline ran, "Heir of $1,000,000 estate uses inheritance to uplift abused youth." That one I didn't mind so much. When my parents heard about it, they didn't say a word, not to me, anyway. But I heard from people. I always do. "She's furious. Someone told me. Said you're throwing money away on nobodies. He says you're just trying to make him look bad." I smiled both times. Because here's the truth. I wasn't trying to make them look bad. They did that all by themselves. I was simply choosing a path they never would have taken. One afternoon, about a year later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. It was from my father. "I never understood her love for you. Maybe I didn't want to, but I understand it now. You did what I never could. You earned it. I won't ask for forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll believe me when I say I was wrong." I read the letter twice, folded it, tucked it into Grandma's locket box with her last note to me. I didn't write back. Some things are better left in silence. The foundation grew. So did I. For the first time, I wasn't someone's disappointment. I wasn't trying to earn love. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just me, and that was enough. Sometimes, when the sky is soft and golden, I sit on the same porch where she once told me, what we leave behind is not gold, but good. I understand now. She wasn't just giving me money. She was giving me a chance to choose the kind of person I'd become. My parents had expected millions. They thought it was theirs by birthright, but it never was. It belonged to the one who had her heart. And I did